I'm sure you are rubbing up against some limitations: time, money, resources that come from money. So how can you reframe it and go, not, I can't do this because I don't have XYZ, but instead, how could I do this in spite? How could I do this because I don't have XYZ? The Creative Spotlight with Emily Ulibarri, episode 13. Why your limited resources equal creative expansion. Scene 1, take 1, action. Hello, creative souls, and welcome back. Today's topics is one of my favorite, and here's why. This is not a concept I created. This is something that I learned organically, and once I kind of went back and looked at it in retrospect, I was like, wow, that was cool. Now I can use this with intention for every one of my future creative endeavors. So the idea here being that we all have a limit on our resources of some kind. And we can use that limitation to stop us in our tracks and keep us from creating our amazing visions. Or we can use those limited parameters to become even more creative. So I'm going to exemplify this with the story, which is the time that I learned it, organically learned it. And then, like I said, upon looking back, I was like, wow, that's cool. That actually served us really well. Now let's kind of use this perspective on purpose going forward. So limited resources. The two main resources are time and money, right? Because we need time to create, and money will buy you any of the things that you need to create, whether that's extra humans to be a part of your project, or, lights, or a new guitar, whatever it is, money will typically help us get there. So a few years ago, we launched, we premiered a show called I Haunt You, a play on the expression I heart you, and is obviously a haunted love story. It's really beautiful. It's a really special piece of work. And I want to take you through the creation story. And I promise at the end, you'll get the lesson and you'll be able to apply it to your own visions. I actually had an inspiration back when I was in college, and I went and watched one of my professor's one-man shows. He did a one-man show, and it was brilliant. He was acting, he was dancing, he had this intricate set. It had this beautiful, rich, sort of ethereal, kind of universal theme to it. It tugged every little heartstring I had. I was so inspired and so impressed with his ability to do this one-man show and captivate me for nearly 2 hours. I left that small theater like on cloud nine, like, oh my God, wow, that's so cool. So at the time, my husband and I were already deep into the ballroom dance world. So we were very well versed at performing together. Now, we'd actually been performing together all the way back in high school, but not necessarily in partnership dance. And so we were an established duo at this point. Like, we spent most of our time on stage together. And so on my long drive home that night, I was like, I want to do a duet. I want to do a show with just the two of us. We had been producing shows with about 20 cast members at the time. I want to do a show with just the two of us and see if our performance and creative skills are strong enough to hold the stage, just the two of us, for a full-length show. And that was the goal. And I went home and told him all about it. I got a notebook, titled it Duet, working title, Duet. I don't know what it's about. I just know it's a two-man show. One man, one woman. So we kind of threw ideas at it for quite a while. It was in the background of my other more active creative work for, guess how long? 10 years. Not because it's so amazing that it took me 10 years to create, but because it was in the background for a long time and I wasn't sure what it was. And every now and then I'd kind of throw something at it and see if it stuck. And for a while I thought it was going to be a short film, like a dance film. And I wasn't sure, but it was building these themes as being this really romantical, kind of ethereal story. And I mean, we produced so many other projects on the way to this. And then this thing happened in 2020 that you will likely remember, called COVID. And we were in the midst of producing a show with our fuller cast, and everything got shut down. And so we couldn't continue producing that show. And it was really sad because it was fixing to be a really cool show. And time went on, and our theater was closed for quite a while, and we were depressed like most people were. And as we started reaching back toward, well, what will we do when we can finally reopen our theater again? And we had two ideas on the table. And one was to bring back a show that would have a cast of 7. And the other one is to go, what about duet? What about we finally figure out what duet actually is? With parameters being so limited because of COVID, we still weren't really allowed to like meet in large numbers and all these things. We were like, you know what? I think this is the divine opportunity to go all in on duet. We haven't really given ourselves the time to focus on this project. So now's the time. I live with you. I can't stay away from you. So we're allowed. We're in each other's COVID bubble. It'll be all right. And so we started focusing on duet and trying to really figure out what that was. And the story started taking shape as this kind of haunted love story. But I was like, Raymond, I'm writing this script, but like, how am I supposed to only put 2 characters in here? Like, there's some side roles. There's some other people in here. Like, how am I supposed to do this? I need more people. But we were like, no, it's first of all, COVID. Second of all, the goal of the project was to just be 2 people. So how do we do this? So we had this limited resource, 2 people. Now we also had limited money. Most of our projects are filmed out of our own pocket. It's not like we have huge investors coming in, throwing millions of dollars at us to create elaborate sets and have an orchestra, right? We have limited resources. And so what happened over the course of this project is we set a parameter and we went, okay, we've got our small immersive theater. We're going to do this show in the round. It's going to be really intimate, really up close. And we're going to not only play in the center of the audience, but we're also going to play around them, behind them. It's a spooky story. So how fun to like spook up behind you in the dark when you don't know I'm coming. And what are we going to do with these other, I think there's 27 other characters. Like they're all little teensy roles here and there, but there are that many characters in the show. How are we going to do this? And so we decided that real people would be in the center and non-real people who weren't really there in the flesh would be around the outside. So I could have a conversation. Here's the audience sitting between me and the imaginary actors out there. And I could talk to them. And so I would face this way and make eye contact with nobody except for the human in my imagination. And we would put their voice into the soundtrack. And so we would invite the audience to imagine the people that weren't really there. And I would say about once every time we play this show, the first time we do it, which I think is in scene 5, inevitably someone will go, because they think there's another actor really behind them, and it's so fun, and it takes everything and to not break and just like giggle at it because I'm like, yeah, it's working. They believed it, and then they turn back around and they kind of giggle like, haha, they got me. This is fun. I'm using my imagination to pretend that that person she's talking to is actually there. We didn't reinvent a wheel here, but we said, hey, people have imaginations. What if we just ask them to use them? And so we allowed ourselves to bring in these 27 other roles without bringing in 27 humans, which wasn't possible per our budget and per COVID rules at the moment in time. And then the next piece was, well, let's keep the set extremely minimal, like extremely minimal. So we have this one box on wheels. That's it. That box is going to be everything. It's going to be a kitchen table. It's going to be a chair. It's going to be a bathtub. Like it's going to be whatever we need it to be. And let's only use extremely minimal props, like only essential props. Like there's a phone. It's an important part of the story, so we can use the phone. But most of the stuff we're not going to use. And then let's go costume crazy. Like let's just go bonkers on costumes. Part of the reason we did that is because we each play 4 different characters in the show. And so we wanted to make it really easy for our audience to understand which character we were playing at each moment. So it changes in the soundscape, it changes in the lighting tone, it changes in our costumes. And so we've essentially created kind of this style, this voice, if you will, this parameter of this type of entertainment. And we felt a little risky putting it out there. We're like, oh my God, are people going to get this? Are people going to accept that there's nothing on stage except for this little box that we push around? Are people going to accept that 20 of the characters aren't there at all? They're only there in voiceover? Are people going to accept that I'm sometimes pantomiming an object that's not there? Are people going to play with us in this play? And so it's kind of risky. And we launched the show and she got rave reviews. It's a phenomenal show. I'm really, really proud of it. And so once we did it, we took some of these risks, and the risks were taken sheerly out of, is sheerly a word? Out of limitations, limited time, limited money, limited people to be involved. And then it was a success. And what happened was what we wanted to happen, which was I wanted to invoke people's imaginations. I wanted it to feel kind of like reading a novel. Let's say I'm reading a novel and you're reading the same one, and the author describes a room. And even though the author is describing it beautifully, we each picture the room differently per our own imagination. I wanted the show to feel like that. Like I've pantomimed a door. What does the door look like to you versus what does it look like to her? And so we literally employed the audience's imagination to fill in the gaps of real, tangible objects and items and humans that we couldn't have. And it was so much fun, and the impact on the audience was just so profound that after we went, hooray, yay to us, cheers, pat on the back, we did a good show, we realized we'd actually really started to define our voice as a theater company, and that we would actually use this again, this very limited set, essential props only, costumes galore, a soundscape to build in what visually isn't there. And we created a voice. And so the limited resources on that show served us so well, not just on that project, but for every project we've done since then. We've used some element of this. Now, would the show have been better if we just had unlimited money and unlimited actors and space to use all the things? I kind of feel like no. What it would have lost is the awe the audience had with the activation of their own imagination. So what if I put the whole set out there for you, and I put the door, and the door is brown and it's ornate and it's this and that and whatever, and you all see the same door? Cool, it's a pretty door. But I didn't ask your imagination to turn on. And so what I might have accomplished by having those 27 actors is that I had 27 actors. Cool, now I gotta pay them all. But then I would have lost the ability, the ask for the audience's imagination to come alive. And I think that is worth more than having the door and having the 27 actors. So I think we actually grew creatively, and the audience experienced something really cool. What most of our members say is, wow, I didn't know what to expect. I've never experienced anything like that before. And it's a really special emotive experience for them. And that all came because we didn't have every resource we would have chosen to have in a perfect world. That is a long story, I know. But it's a really passionate piece of artwork. And the lesson was so profound for us that I want to encourage you now to look at your own creative endeavors. I'm sure you are rubbing up against some limitations: time, money, resources that come from money. So how can you reframe it and go, not, I can't do this because I don't have XYZ, but instead, how could I do this in spite? How could I do this because I don't have XYZ? What creative window is waiting to be opened? I should have said door. The perfect setup to say door. What creative door is waiting to be opened because of the limitations on this project? I can't answer that for you, but you could certainly stop the video and sit down or go for a walk for a few minutes and ponder that question, or even ask yourself tonight right before you go to sleep and see what answer is presented to you in the morning, because I promise you your limitations are not the problem. You can create amazing work with as little as you may have available, and something amazing will be there. And you know, some of the biggest pieces of artwork out in the world, the biggest budget, the most grandeur, are not the best. They might just be riding on the money that they had, but not actually be the most amazing piece of artwork out there. So you don't need a lot to produce a lot. You do need a lot of imagination. And I know you've got that because you're watching this channel, which means you're a creative. So if you enjoyed this episode, give it a like, a subscribe, a thumbs up, all the things. And if you want to dive deeper into the creative pool with me, then sign up to receive my weekly newsletter. I would love to have you as a part of the family. We are growing this community. We are eventually going to get into the actual tangible world where you can't just see me, but I can see you too. So let's build a creative community. That's a wrap, darling. Now go do your creative work.